To another episode of CRE, The Unspoken Truth. Today's topic is how to create a sustainable business. You've created several sustainable businesses. You've been a part of them as partners, investors. You've also been, founders. You've also founded your own, right, businesses. And so you're not new to this. This is not a topic you're new to. But my first question would be, like, if I were someone who just had an idea or a product that I thought really was valuable, what would be the first step that I should take to turning it into a business?
There's about 100 steps, but the first step is, can you get a product that you can sell into the marketplace? And this is one of the things, it's the hardest thing to do. It's from day one and it's till day that you end. It's product market fit. And we learned that the hard way when we're running the OneSource, that we didn't necessarily have the product market fit when we originally came out with it. What we acquired, we thought had already done the homework, and it wasn't true. So it took us some time to figure out the product market fit, and that will be one of the absolute keys. And as you know, at Forward Tilt, Michelle He, from day one, knew what the market was. There have been plenty of issues. She's built that company on her back, but never did she have an issue that she couldn't sell into the business place. And we had the exact opposite at OneSource, where we acquired a company we thought had product market fit, and we found out over the first 6 months that we didn't. And so that, if you can have a product, it's if you have a product that sells, it will go a long ways to save your company and to have a sustainable business. As long as you have sales, that you can screw up a lot of things, but that will help you.
Yeah, you can have a lot of problems, but if you have sales, you still have a job, right? You still have a business, you still have a company, and maybe even a growing one, right? So that covers up a lot of problems. And if you were to choose one problem to have, don't choose that one, right?
That's right. You want to start with sales. And so, I've been in the sales business, but it was a real shock to me when we didn't close. We were like, okay, this is a sales message. It wasn't a sales message. It was product market fit. And I think it's Mark Andreessen said that, if you have product market fit, you'll know it. That's when the product starts selling itself and you get referral sales. And so it took us a long time to figure that out. And then that is the absolute key for business. And then the second one that I think your next question is, what else is there? The second one is to build a fantastic world-class team, which is incredibly difficult to do. We talked about a little bit on the last Unspoken Truth, but building a world-class team that will execute is so hard today. It's incredibly hard, especially, there's 11 million jobs open, and there's 6 million people. So you're looking for people who already have a job, and how do you convince them to come to your vision, your job? And that's really hard to do.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that go into building a team, right? It's the vision, it's the personality, the skill sets, the opportunity, and more. What about with a service-based company, right? Yours with brokerage, or maybe on the mortgage brokerage side, or if you were, talking to lenders, right? There's a lot of different lenders, banks, private lenders. And it's a little bit more of a service because what they're selling may be perceived as more of a commodity. How would you start that when you may not have product market fit, or it may be a slightly different understanding?
Well, that's where relationships come in. Building critical relationships, and relationships that can survive in tough times and thrive in good times. Having deep and meaningful relationships is critical. I think in my business at the Polo Cheney Group, that's been the hallmark of our success, is we've built great relationships and we really nurture those. And I think every great company and every sustainable company has relationships. As you know, Michelle over at Forward Tilt has she builds these most incredible relationships. And I think every single company that I've seen with success has done that. You have to be able to sell in the marketplace, and then have sticky repeat customers with relationships that will refer you and buy from you again.
Yep. And that's what I see. Just CRE OneSource, right? We talk to a lot of 2-man shops, right? Small teams, small companies. And there's a lot of them, right? There's hundreds, thousands of them throughout the United States. And sometimes I ask myself, how are there this many, small companies? And it's, hey, they have a book of business. They have a small group of repeat customers that know them, trust them, want to do business with them. And it's enough to sustain a business, right? And so the topic, right, is how to create a sustainable business. If you have good relationships and repeat customers and you take care of them and deliver what you say you're going to do, that's a sustainable business.
I think one of the misnomers, and this is a crazy stat that most people know, in the commercial real estate business, not just brokerage, but mortgage brokers and direct lenders, FDIC banks, every single one of those, there is not one bank or one group that dominates the marketplace. If you look at the top 5 sales in autos, it's going to be GM, Chevy, whatever it is. If you look at the top 5 searches, it's going to be Google and Bing and Outlook. There are 2 or 3 that do it. In the commercial real estate business, the top 5 mortgage brokers and the top 5 brokers accommodate less than 20% of the marketplace, less than 20%. So 80% of the market is these small shops, is these folks out there building key relationships and executing for those clients. And we applaud those. We sell to them. We want them as our customers, and most the small businesses aren't going after those. They're going after, hey, I want the Fortune 500 clients. And because we really like people who have built a business on their own back and have relationships, and they do a handshake for their deal. And that's something I've always been proud of what those folks have done.
Yep. Yeah, and Lee and Associates, I know it's a much bigger company today, but you still compete with CBRE, JLL, some of the huge names that have more resources, and it's just a different, right? So I think, just from watching you would still look at yourself as a small business trying to compete, with these bigger corporations.
When we started the company, we were the 9th office at Lee and Associates. So we had maybe 100 brokers across the other 9 offices. And we started with 7 brokers. Today we have 50 brokers, and now Lee and Associates is 1,065 offices. So we've seen it grow. But the way it grows is each individual office is owned separately. They're individual LLCs. Each individual office manages themselves. So we still view ourselves, and we are truly independent. And that competing with Fortune 500 companies sometimes is difficult, but we are certainly up for the game and up for the challenge, and we like doing it. And we like doing it because we think we can compete in different ways than they can.
What would you say to someone, because this was my perception, before we started OneSource, I was overwhelmed by the legal aspects of actually starting a company. And I know that other people are overwhelmed by maybe the financial aspects. That happens to be my background, but I know plenty of people who are very skilled and they have a great skill set and background with customers, but they don't really understand the finances of making a business. There's always seems to be one blind spot or one spot that you just really don't have experience in. What would you say to someone who's starting or wants to start a company, but is nervous about that one area that they really don't have any experience in?
Well, you can go get that experience. So first of all, we, as we talked about before, we hire to unique abilities, and we think that what we want to do is put me and my team, you and everybody else on our team in their spots where they have passion and they're excellent at what they do. And if we can keep you there in your excellence and unique ability segment 75% or more of your time, then we're going to build a great team. And so we're looking for those kinds of people. We are, and you and I, as you know, you and I are constantly meeting with people because we don't necessarily know what our blind spots are, but when we have somebody, we'll fill it pretty quickly. And so with the reason, because we're always meeting with folks and we're seeing what their different unique abilities are. So I would say if you're starting a company, you don't have a skill set, you can find it and you can use your network and somebody will come up with it. And that is critical. And I would say, and most founders are visionaries. They have an idea, they want to build something, and they're looking for, the book they should read is called Rocket Fuel by Gino Wickman. And the Rocket Fuel is they're looking for an implementer, which is really what your skill set is to me. I'm I'm out there doing the big picture stuff, and then yours is the implementer. The visionary is not someone who's going to pick up the pieces and run with it. You're a simplifier. You take things, create processes, and that's what the first kind of key person of any job is, to take the visionaries and then execute on that. So there's ways to find those, and we're fortunate to have you that does that for our team and company. But most companies need to have that, and they need to hire to it. And then obviously you're going to find different niches for everything else.
Yeah, that was something I had written down, was co-founders, right? Or co-founders or other team members. You don't have to have all the answers. But if you know someone who does have the answers that you don't have, you can complement each other's skill set and become more powerful and more successful than you could on your own, right?
I would argue that the co-founder is a big word. If you don't have a
Partner,
skill
team
set,
member.
you can bring other people in, you can bring them as advisors. You don't need to bring them in as co-founders. We've seen where people, the companies have to run, and you have to, there's a ton of decisions that have to be made. So, I think having the voice at the top that makes the final decision, and, in our company, that's me. It's been me at my Capola Cheney Group for the last 30 years. And you need that voice. Someone has to make the decisions. And when you're building a business and a sustainable business, it's certainly difficult to run it on a committee.
How about on another episode, we talked about black swan events, right? And I want to ask this question through the long-term kind of perspective of, hey, you've run a brokerage business, you've run the C2 team or your own, brokerage business for 36-7 years. What does it take to be sustainable and successful over 2-3 decades?
Well, you've got to grow. The business changing, and one of the things we've been finding out is there's a lot of brokers who don't want to change, who are becoming dinosaurs very quickly. They know it, they see it, and yet they can't not do it, and so they're not willing to grow and change. And so the people who survive, as long as I have in the business, have had to reinvent themselves 3 or 4 times, and the pace of change and how you have to reinvent yourself is speeding up. It's not slowing down. The idea of creating a business and then 30 years later still having that plumbing business or air conditioning business or real estate business, that's going away. Technology is changing how all businesses are run every day, and the more you resist and not go with the flow and change, the faster you're out of the business. Unfortunately, it's just how it is.
Right. And have you seen that? I'm sure you've seen a number of examples, right, of people who haven't changed. And maybe, have you seen, I guess I should phrase it this way, have you seen someone who was successful for 25 years and then stopped changing and then was, forced out of the business or lost the success that they had for 20 years?
Well, I'll give you an example. We see it all the time. We started in I was the young guy in 1991 when we started the business. We have people who are retiring that are our partners, original founders. We had 8 of us. They're in their mid-70s now, and they're retiring, and their business has just gone away. It's like there's no business to sell, and they're just dinosaurs, and they've hanged on to a few clients here and there, but there isn't a business where, I've built this Capola Cheney business that will run past me, and it's very hard to do. It's taken me a long time. Andrew's been my partner now almost 20 years, Greg 11. And so these partners have been there a long time, and we're forcing them to grow and kind of change, or else my business would have just died along with these other partners that are mine that are just retiring. They're retiring. We've seen that as we talk to people. We've asked them, we'll call them on one source, and they'll say, oh yeah, I'm just retiring, so I'm not a good lead. Well, who else is taking over your business? And they'll say, no one. It's just going away. And so that is a constant thing that's happening in the world. They're dinosaurs. They know it. They're retiring. They've done fine. They're going to be fine financially, but they haven't kept up with the business. And at some point, they just get tired and they retire.
Right. Right. And that's more common, I would think, in brokerage, where it's in kind of an individual or a small team of 1 or 2 or 3 people. But on the corporate side, or more of the right, we talk to lenders all the time, right? They they can't really have that option if their founder decides to retire and there's 25 people there. Most of the time they've got to find a succession plan, right? And figure out what's going to happen when I'm not here.
Yeah, it's that's a tougher business. You know, the broker can just, and mortgage broker can just fade off into the sunset. The ongoing business, the FDIC banks, direct lenders, and other companies that have bigger payrolls, they have to continually change. And it's shocking how it is like pulling teeth, you know. And you and I shared an email this weekend, right? I can't remember the exact quote, but the quote was, there is a conflict between ideas and execution all the time, and you didn't really get it. And it was like, well, the people who are implementers, you at OneSource, Chelsea at Capola Cheney, want to find a process and then stick to it. And me as the visionary of the company are taking that and saying, we have to change, we have to grow, we have to Kaizen, we have to move. And you're like, wait, we just got this process down. Why are we doing this again? And so it's this constant battle between figuring out processes and seeing how they work, and then trying new experiments and seeing how that works. And it takes time, and it is a roadblock, and it is a source of tension within companies. And if you don't have that tension, then you're not growing.
Yeah. I think you and I had that conversation, a variation of that conversation a few months ago, and your visual was you were, you know, it was getting bigger and then smaller and bigger and then smaller, and basically saying things are going to get more complex and more difficult, and then they're going to get simpler, and they're going to get more straightforward and more process oriented. And it's always going to be ebbing and flowing. And it's never a steady, and it shouldn't be a steady process where it's just straightforward every time. Because if that's the case, then you're probably not looking to experiment, looking to grow, looking to improve enough, right? If you're very consistent and always kind of doing the same process over and over and over again, you may not be trying new things enough. Where if it's always chaos, you may not be simplifying and finding the process enough.
I've got a great example of that. Over the last 35 years, you know, I'm a big goal setter. And so every 3 years, I blow up my goals and do a complete new format. And it just irritates Chelsea. It's like, wait a minute, we finally figured out how to track and do your goals, and you're blowing it up. It's because goals change, what motivates you changes, how you work out changes, those kind of things, and you have to relook at it. And that's the microcosm in life, is nothing is static, no relationship is static. And those people who take for granted the relationship, their goal setting, the motivation for those goal setting, they don't start a new business at age 60 and say, I'm going to go try and make this happen with my own capital. And so that's what we've been doing. And you know, I'm learning a shit ton for 61 years old. I'm learning a ton, and I think it's hard, but it's fun. It's different.
Yeah. And I know, I mean, I've seen your goals and your hundreds of pages, and
You always say, don't show everybody your goals.
they get overwhelmed. Well, I've seen it all, right? And I've seen all the different formats, so I know that it's definitely, that's how you are, right? And with everything you do, right? I've seen it with how you exercise. I've seen it with how you plan vacations. I've seen it with how you run your businesses and your personal life. You are constantly changing and redefining what success looks like to you.
Yeah, I think, you know, today my goals are 11 by 17, 86 pages typed. I think in the next 24 months, they're going to be less than 10 pages. And because you have to change, you have to kind of think about it and move it. So I've got a lot of stuff that it just has to fit for where you are, and things change for me and they move differently. And and it happens in goals. It happens in our business. Our business plans change, they ebb and flow. And that's just how I view the world, where I am. I want to meet the world where I am at that spot. And that's where it pays to kind of always be thinking, and there's nothing set in stone.
Yeah. Well, I do like that idea of having kind of a middle ground between consistency, process oriented, and, you know, experimentation, always changing, looking for the best new thing. trying a new idea or two, right? It's important to have both.
So when you say the middle ground, let's clarify that. I remember hiking the Grand Canyon one time. As you know, I spent a bunch of time in the Grand Canyon, and there's this trail. It's one of the hardest trails in the Grand Canyon. It's called Nankoweap. And the reason they call it, there's a little stream, a Nankoweap stream that goes into the Grand Canyon, to the Colorado River. And I remember laying down in Nankoweap Creek and being able to lay where my feet were in the Colorado and my head was in the Nankoweap, and I could just feel as the Colorado would ebb and flow, the cold would come up my body and it would go back and down. So when you say there's a middle ground, yeah, there's a middle ground in there, but it was never stagnant. The middle ground is always going over you and going back. So there's always tension. It was cold and hot. And so ultimately, as you look back, you go, yeah, we had some processes that stuck and some we blew up and we changed. But overall, we were in the middle ground. But there is no middle ground with any one of those things together, just like I was laying in the Nankoweap Creek going, it's not just one temperature, it's moving.
Yeah. And I think, with business, if you think short term, you'll never feel like you're in the middle ground, right? It'll always be one way or the other. When you think long term, over a year or multiple years, you may be able to say, hey, we did a little bit of both, right?
Yeah, and strategy guides you, business plans guide you, tactics change.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're always trying to change our tactics with the vision of our strategy in front of us.
This has been fascinating. Creating sustainable businesses, something you have done over your career, something I'm learning from you and others. But thank you so much. Another episode, CRE, The Unspoken Truth.
Thank you.